best way to do it. All right, we're recording. So welcome, everyone. It is so great to, I said that a million times now. Welcome. Okay, it's great to be with you. So I am Rabbi Jason Bonder. I am one of the rabbis. I'm the associate rabbi here at Congregation Beth Or in Maple Glen, PA. And I know that many of you are members of our congregation, and also many of you are coming in from all different places and different paths and places on your Jewish journey, wherever that may be. So I want to first and foremost say welcome. It is great that you are here. And one thing that we will do is begin tonight with a blessing. We're going to have a whole lot of time to break down what blessings are, how they're used, where their origins are from. But for now, I really just want to invite you to take a deep breath in and let it out. I think I needed that more than everyone because I was so excited to start this class. And I'm going to share my screen with a prayer called the Shehechianu. Some of you may know this really, really well. For others, it might be the very first time that you're seeing it, which is exciting in itself. Because this prayer, can everyone see this okay, by the way? Mm-hmm. All right. So this prayer is a really special one. It is one that acknowledges and expresses gratitude to God, to the universe, to whom it may concern. We'll talk about where you might address your prayers to. It acknowledges and expresses gratitude for arriving at this moment. There's really never a bad time to say this prayer, right? Because every moment is special. Every moment is worthy of blessing, in my opinion. But this moment is one of, we are beginning a journey. And traditionally in Judaism, this prayer is said when you're doing something for the first time in your life or the first time that year. So you'll hear this a lot during Jewish holidays, if it's the first time or the first day of the holiday that year. So here is, this may be, and this is what's so special about this class, it's maybe the first time some of you are seeing Hebrew, or perhaps the millionth time. But if you can see my cursor, right below you are the Hebrew letters. They go from right to left. This is called transliteration. It's the Hebrew, the English letters that make the Hebrew sounds. And then we have a translation of this prayer. So I'm going to lead us, whatever you're comfortable with, if you want to listen, if you want to join in, whatever it is that you feel most comfortable doing, we'll begin with this blessing, acknowledging that this is the beginning of something new, and that our community is doing this, moving forward together. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. We can say, Amen. Amen. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has kept us alive, sustained us, and brought us to this season. And with that, I will stop my screen share and tell all of you that we have begun. We're on our way. We're on our journey. And I hope that wherever this takes you is to a place of blessing, and that blessings come with you all the way through as you're moving forward on this journey. So the first thing that I want to do is a little bit out of my technological comfort zone, but we're going to try it, okay? We're going to make word art. For those of you who have done this before, or I think it might be a word map. What I'm going to do is all right, I think, oh good, okay, we're set up. So what I want to invite you to do is I'm going to activate a poll, and I'm going to ask you to respond to the following question. When I hear the word Judaism, what comes to mind is ... And in one or two words, I would like you to respond to that question. I'm going to place where you can, all right, I'm going to put in the chat where you can respond. It's poll, hang on. All right, it's pollev. Hang on. .com / Jason. Hang on. 601. And I will tell you, as I typed that in, that there were no Zoom classes in rabbinical school. So hang on, it's going to be a fun ride. But there it is. So if you go to pollev.com / Jason Bonder 601, which has no significance other than it was randomly generated, the 601 part, I believe you should be able to answer the question of when, there's a typo in it, but when I hear the word Judaism, what comes to mind is, and there should, if this works, I pray it does, we should be able to actually see the words as they pop up on the screen. And of course, if that doesn't work, we can do this another way, but let's see if we can do it. So share. And I'm going to try and participate as well. Oh, all right. Well, it's been fun, everyone. I got something technological to work, so I'm out of here. I'm just kidding. Okay, wonderful. So please go ahead, put in your words into the chat. I think also what you'll see is, oh, by the way, can everyone see this? Can everyone see the words that are popping up here? Fantastic. Great. All right, so you guys keep responding. I will join. Ooh, Rabbi. Full disclosure, I did not write that. I just want to make sure that, that's very cool that my title is up there. Wow. And you know, I was so self-congratulatory, but really I want to congratulate all of you for being so technologically savvy and that you can actually do this. Well done.
I couldn't do it.
All right, if you haven't been able to, I'll invite you to put it into the chat, or of course you can just, you'll add to the conversation in a moment or two, okay? Now you might see some of you, I have an outdated web browser. All right, I'm guilty. I can't do it either. Good thing I'm facilitating. Oh, there we go. When I hear the word. Okay. Wow, wonderful. So I want to, what I'm going to do is leave this up here. And I'm going to just check in and make sure here. I just want to check the chat. All right. So some people, beautiful. I'll write these down so that way I have them to discuss as well. Okay. Beautiful. All right. So I've got some wonderful ones in the chat. Wow. Okay, everyone. So this is what we're working with here. I believe if the number, I mean, if we had hundreds of people on this call, the numbers that, I'm sorry, the words that were larger would have been used more, and you know, all those types of things. But you can see it in front of you, but I will just scan and take a look. And I will just say, this is an amazing list. This is This is what Judaism is to you right now, right? This group, you've created this. It's the first thing we're creating together, and I'm really inspired by it. I want to open this up a little bit, and hopefully this is going to be our first icebreaker a little bit about to get to know each other a little bit, and also to start to dig into what today's class is about, which is what is this Judaism thing? And I apologize again for my typo, but when I hear the word Judaism, right, here's what comes to mind for you. What does this mean? So I'm looking for a brave soul who would like to jump in for the first moment of this class and kick us off. What jumps out at you of this list? What interests you? And we'll go from there. Anyone? And by the way, please feel free. You can use your hand, your virtual hand. You can use your regular hand. I think I can see all of you, so I should be able to facilitate. Okay, hopefully. Please, who would like to kick it off? Bonnie, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm always impressed and astounded by the depth of history. In the pandemic, I was able to join David for the New Year's celebration. And what year is it now? 5,000 and something?
We just celebrated 5781.
See, I find that just astonishing to really think about that. So the depth of history.
Beautiful. Thank you. Maddie and Harrison, do you guys want to share?
Sure. So I was the person who wrote Rabbi, and I.
Thank you.
Yeah, truth be told, that was the first thing that came to mind from the temple that I went to when I grew up. The rabbi there was kind of the most important figure, obviously, but I feel like in terms of my connection to Judaism, that was who I was connected to the most. So for me, that's what comes to mind.
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you for sharing. And we will talk a lot about that, about the power of what is called a symbolic exemplar, right? The fact that leaders of a community, and this doesn't have to just do with Judaism, but are understood in different ways, right? We sometimes, like when we step into our role as rabbi or a priest or whatever it is, a religious leader or whatever, we're representing something greater than ourselves, and so thank you for that reminder. That's really very special for me to think about. It's a nice moment for me.
I would say for me, I chose values. I feel like Judaism to me is about ethics and morality, and the valuing of education and family are extremely important.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. And we're gonna really, that's gonna be one of the places where we dive into, especially because in a turning point in Jewish history, which we will come across, is during the Enlightenment period, where people started questioning things, right? And science really comes into the forefront of people's minds. There starts to be this question, well, what do we still need from religion? And we can debate what those things are, and it's what makes Judaism so diverse and beautiful, is that people have different answers to this, but one resounding answer that is where a lot of us in this room, the reason why, or in the Zoom room, but the way we're sitting here is because of a strong answer to say, it's about values, it's about family structure, it's about like all of those things of building up community, and so that is one of the big answers that leads the Jewish people to where we are today. So and values passed down. So anyway, we'll get there, and thank you for sharing. John.
Hi, Rabbi. I'm looking at this list, and I think what strikes me is I wrote history, and I actually wrote another word. I don't remember which one. But I'm looking at the list of words up here, and I'm thinking, boy, so many of those were kind of running through my head in some vein or another. Um, I come, as I mentioned to you in an email not too long ago, I've got nearly 40 years of history of being married into the Jewish faith. And I look at it from a standpoint of when I first learned about Judaism, I always thought about it as there's a lot of history there. I also realized there was an awful lot I didn't know. But I feel like over these decades, I've become to have sort of a much more modern feel to it. You know, there's a real melding of a lot of old stuff and a whole lot of here and now stuff. And how I still struggle with trying to sort of make those two pieces fit together well in my head.
Thank you for sharing. And I'll pick up on one word that you mentioned, and that is the word struggle. Okay. For those of you who don't know, the word Israel, Yisrael, means one who struggles with God. We are the God wrestlers. We're the God strugglers. That's what Jews do. So, you know, I'll say to your comments, welcome to the club. You know, it's we do that all the time. And that's part of it, right? That's the journey. That's the journey we're on, is to figure out, and especially in our times, how do we wrestle with the information of modernity, right? Being open to all the information that comes at us from our world, and also recognize that, as I believe, who was it that said it? I'm looking for, as Bonnie said, right, that at the same time, we've got this tradition that's 5,781 years old, right? And, you know, we'll talk a little bit more about the historicity of that. But regardless, what an amazing thing, and what a struggle it is to fit that all into one human experience. That's a real challenge, and one that I think makes this religion so beautiful. All right. Any other thoughts? I will lean and tell you where I'm going with this. Every year, I mean, I've only, you know, I haven't been in the rabbinate that long, but I have taught 3 Intro to Judaism classes, and I've done this exercise 3 times, and so far we're 3 for 3 with something that's missing from this list that one might think, and one in ancient times would think would be up there at the very beginning. I'm curious to know if anyone might be able to see what's not here. So I drink my seltzer. Pearl, go ahead.
Prayer.
Beautiful. It's not the one I was thinking of, but yeah, absolutely. Prayer. And in fact, we will spend a lot of time discussing prayer and how prayer actually developed. Oh, by the way, I'm so sorry. I'm just realizing that there were a few of you who I didn't have visible on my screen. So if you've been trying to flag me down, I apologize. And let's see, and someone else wrote it to everyone. Okay. Oh, and a few of you commented, God. This is, so 3 for 3. Nobody put God down. To me, right, and by the way, and this is not the rabbi being like, shame on you, right? No, this is what a reflection of where we've come as a human race, right? As people who are looking at religion, and it's just fascinating to marvel at that, right? We will spend a few classes on God and what that means, and I promise you that when I say the word God, each of you have at least one different thing in your mind about what that means, and we'll talk about that a little bit more today. But isn't that fascinating, right? Over these years, that God didn't make the list. But again, so going back, and we'll talk more about that later. Take a look at what is on here, and there's my role will be, and I want to highlight this right now. If I ever say anything that you don't understand, like a Hebrew word or a word that doesn't make sense to you, please stop me in my tracks, because it just means I'm talking rabbi jargon and I just assume that people know it. there's no assumptions here. We're all coming at this as beginners and in our own ways, and we will learn together. So the ones that I'm looking at that I think I should define for us is the word rabbi. Okay, rabbi, you may have heard, and it's my title. I started off the course saying I am Rabbi Jason Bonder. A rabbi, the word is related to a Hebrew root rav, which means great, because I'm such a great guy. No, but in all seriousness, because great, meaning great in learning. A rabbi was one who mastered a certain amount of text and eventually was given the title of rabbi. So that's so that is the history, the very short history of that word. The other word on here is Torah. The Torah is comprised of the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. And if you've ever been to synagogue service, that big scroll that is taken out of the ark and often is even lifted in the air and shown to the community, that is the Torah. It is said that there's traditions that say that everything that we need to know, the blueprint of the universe, is in that document. And we'll talk a lot more about that as we go. First of all, thank you all. Great work for putting this together. I want to just see if there's any other comments or questions that we might be missing about this, and then we can move on to our next section. But thank you all for participating in this process. All righty. I'm going to stop my screen share. All right. I can see you much better. I hope I can figure that out in the future a little bit better. For those of you who read the email, it's okay if you did not. I asked you to bring something red and something green. Some of you may said, wait a minute, I thought it was the Intro to Judaism class, not preparation for Christmas. No, it's not that, don't worry. We're gonna do a little icebreaker. Oh, nice, Bonnie and Dave, although I don't know if it's gonna work exactly that, because it's gonna be a game about, think of traffic lights, okay? You're gonna answer no with something red, yes with something green, okay? That's the idea. If you don't have something red and green, it is okay. You can either just raise your hand, like yes is your hand is raised, no is your hand is down, that's fine. But again, full disclosure, I did a whole training about how to be more engaging on Zoom, and this is what they recommended, and you'll tell me what you think. Okay, so first question, or first yes or no. I was born near or in Philadelphia. All right. So we've got a lot of Philly folks, understandably. For those of you who don't know, Beth Orr is in Maple Glen, Pennsylvania. All right. So if you're willing to share, I will start and say I was born on Long Island, outside of New York City. And if anybody else wants to share where they were born, where are you guys from? Where's everyone from? Pearl.
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. I've heard of that.
I misunderstood your question. I thought you wanted to know where you were born. I was not born in Philadelphia.
Sorry.
I was born in McKeesport, Pennsylvania.
Okay, sorry about that. You're right. I said I was born, right, but yes, as a little icebreaker, where were we all? Where was everyone born? Are you from this area locally or elsewhere?
Albert Einstein Southern Division, South Philly.
Okay, Philly it is. Very nice.
I'll piggyback off of that. I was born in Einstein too, but I grew up in Horsham, so I grew up down the road, actually.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Manchester, New Hampshire, but I consider myself Southern Virginian by raising.
I was born in Monterey, California.
And I was born in Phoenix, Arizona.
Boston.
All right.
Ambler,
Nice.
Pennsylvania.
I was born in Lankenau.
All right.
Philadelphia, Einstein.
Yeah, nice smattering. Very nice. I don't mean to cut us off. We're gonna have lots of time to get together, but I want to make sure I get to the good stuff. This is the good stuff too. Welcome everyone. We're breaking down barriers of the Zoom room. Next question. Okay, this is so everyone please answer with your opinion on this. If you are happy or sad, so red for sad, green for happy, about the Eagles being a whopping 0-4 right now. I am sad about that. Okay, we've got some happy folks. All right. This is one that it's safer to do in the Zoom room because, this could get serious really quick if we were all in person. I will say, even though I root for many New York sports teams, football is not my favorite sport, and so I am adopting the Eagles. What a year to adopt these birds. Okay. All right, we're going to move. And by the way, I forgot to mention, if there's any question that you don't want to answer, right, we won't assume that there's something, terrible or whatever, right? It's okay to sit one out. That's totally fine. Okay. I've learned, so the statement that is either affirmative or whatever, what is it, negative? I don't even know. Anyway, have you ever learned about Judaism in a formal setting before? Okay. Have you ever learned about Judaism in a formal setting? This is my green item. I certainly have. Don't worry, you're in good hands. All right. Cool. And then I'm curious, of those who said yes, how many was religious school the last time you were in a formal Jewish setting? Okay. All right. Couple. Very cool. And then the last two is, number one, I'm nervous about starting the journey of this course. I was tonight. I was nervous to start teaching, my first time teaching on Zoom. And of course, you don't have to answer. All right, good. And then I'm excited about starting this journey. This one you have to answer yet. I'm just kidding. No, actually, instead, what I want to do is share a quick teaching with you from not someone from the Jewish world at all, but Simon Sinek, who's like a thought leader in the business world. I don't know, some of you may have heard of him. And I saw a great TED talk of his, which said that physiologically, nervousness and excitement are pretty much the exact same thing, right? Your hands get a little sweaty, your eyes get a little bit enlarged, your heartbeat races a little bit more, and blood rushes to your hands and your feet. Okay, your body is totally the same whether you're nervous or you're excited. Then it becomes what your brain is going to tell you about how to interpret that. By the way, I know I'm looking at a room of people who know, some of you know these things a lot better than I do, so I hope I'm getting this right. But my hope for us tonight and moving forward in this class is that we adopt the mindset, a learner's mindset, a mindset of growth mindset, that we are always able and capable to learn something more, and that the only difference between our nervousness and our excitement is what we tell ourselves in our heads. So I hope we all can shift towards excitement and learning and going on this journey together. So what we are going to do next is one more icebreaker, because, and I will say, I want to pause here and just say also that one of the big regrets of this year is that Intro to Judaism is usually a wonderful community building experience where people are breaking bread together and bringing, and snacks. I'm all about the food, but also just being in the same room and getting to chat. And I know that's not possible right now. So we're going to do the best we can this way. But just know that hopefully one day all of us or many of us can meet in the same place and say hi to each other. But it looks like it won't be this year, or at least, for a while. So with that depressing note, we're going to get to know each other. I will start. I'm going to model how this goes. And this Zoom icebreaker is called I Spy. So here's how it's going to work. I want you can look into your screen, but look at your own little bubble for a moment. Take a look, get familiar with what's behind you, because the way this game is going to work is that I will introduce myself. And I'll tell you how I'll introduce myself in a minute. And then I will pick something in a room that is in a Zoom box and say, I spy. And if you want to go with full throttle and say with my little eye, that's also very cool. You'll say, I spy with my little eye, and you'll say something that is in someone else's room, and then it'll be their turn to introduce themselves. We're going to do this relatively quickly, nothing too crazy, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to do your name or names, whoever's in your space. What brings you to this class? Just a sentence or two, and of course, no pressure to divulge whatever you want to share, you can share. And the last thing is a favorite hobby. It doesn't have to have anything to do with Judaism. I will begin. I am Jason Bonder, and it's great to see all of you. What brings me to this class is that I'm teaching it, but I will also say that this is one of my favorite things to do because it gets me to think about the basics of Judaism, and each time that happens, it inspires me in a new way to think about how I carry myself in my daily life. So I thank you for that opportunity. And the last, my hobby, I love to play sports. I love to play baseball, and I'm a big runner and triathlete. These days, less so, but when I'm not running after my kids, I like to go for a run or compete in endurance events. I spy with my little eye a guitar in one person's background, and I'll turn it over to you, John, sorry, I'm not supposed to say. You may figure out whoever it may be.
There you go.
Go ahead.
Okay, I am John, yes. Hi, John Love here. I don't even remember what else I'm supposed to tell you. Why did I get interested in this class? Well, my wife and I joined the temple a few years ago. We had belonged to a previous temple. I just hit the retirement age. I wanted to get more involved in my community, and I saw this as a good way to do that. And the reason I joined the class is because I want to understand more about Judaism. As I had emailed to the rabbi earlier, I come kind of with a lot of Jewish knowledge that I've gotten through osmosis. And I think I'm looking for a way to kind of start formalizing that knowledge to see if it's, go beyond the 8,000 anecdotes that I have. One of my favorite hobbies is working with wood. I like making a lot of things with wood. I have a wood shop down in my basement and tools out in the garage, and that's kind of the thing I'm into. So, all right. So I spy with my older eye, not so little, twin pictures behind twin heads.
I'm Judy Beck.
And I'm also a John, and my formal education in Judaism only went as far as my bar mitzvah. I am also at an age of retirement and looking to enrich and add to my basic knowledge of Judaism. I think sometimes my interest in knowledge was by osmosis also. It's an interesting term. But as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that there's things that I've not learned as I've gotten older. And now I think it's a time to be able to fill in the spaces and to expand my level of knowledge and education. And I think this was a good opportunity for us to do that. Hobby-wise, I like to read about history, sports also. But it's good to be with all of you.
I'm Judy Beck, and basically I'm sort of a tag-along. I wasn't going to sign up for this, but I figured because Tuesday night, once a month, I have book club. But John was doing this, and it's a pandemic. I have nowhere else to go tonight. So here I am. And my hobby, I guess right now, I would say it's walking. That's the one thing that we do together. We get outside every day, and we walk more now than we ever did, but it's all good. And as far as my education, I'm a graduate of the Melton program, and I was bat mitzvahed a couple of years ago at Beth Or. Plus, I was confirmed, so lots of years. So, and I'm sure I'll gain a lot of knowledge in this.
Wonderful. And just to highlight the Melton program, I believe, is it similar to Maya, where it's 100 hours of learning, or?
It was 2 years, and then Gratz College at the time, who was offering the course, had extra courses. So I guess I was there 4 or 5 years altogether.
Wow.
And I'd also participated in doing 1 year of the Maya classes.
Very cool.
For a couple
Great.
years.
Yeah, so there are lots of opportunities for advanced Jewish learning. This is the springboard, and from here, there's endless opportunity. All right, Bex, you get to pass it along to someone else.
All right.
Okay, so I spy a fan in the ceiling.
Ah.
How's it going?
Hi, everyone. My name is Harrison, and I'm taking this class because I was bar mitzvahed, and then pretty much right after that, I hadn't really been back to temple and kind of forgot a lot of what I learned, and so I kind of wanted to get reacquainted with, everything that I learned in Hebrew school, and hopefully learn a few new things too. One of my favorite hobbies is meditation.
My name is Maddie. I'm taking this course because I grew up in a pretty traditional Jewish household, but I'm taking it with my partner so that we kind of have the same base level knowledge on Judaism together. And one of my hobbies is cross stitching, which is a new hobby that I've taken up in this quarantine time in the past few months.
Maddie, may I also share that Maddie also is, so before being at Beth Or, I was out in Tempe, Arizona for 3 years. And on my interview, across the table was I believe, then president of the synagogue, Howard Paley. And next to him was his daughter, Maddie Paley, who's right there. And there. So we have that connection. And not only that, Maddie babysat for my kids out in Arizona, and my children are still obsessed with her. So that is another connection. And so, sorry, I couldn't resist saying that thank you for being here, and it's great to see you guys. So they're over, it's not even 7:43 over by them. So anyway, so welcome guys, welcome. And please go ahead and you can spy with your little eye, whoever you'd like.
Okay, I spy with my little eye 2 people with I believe it is a dandelion photo behind them.
Yes, hi. My name's Todd. My reason for getting back is I missed a lot through Hebrew school. I wasn't paying attention that much, so I want to get back to my roots and learn a lot more about Judaism, and so that's I'm a physical therapist, and that's my little story.
Your hobby?
Well, my hobby, playing sports, hockey, love hockey. So.
My name is Sean Scher. My reason for taking the class is I did not enjoy Hebrew school when I went through it, and our daughter is 12 and seems to be having so much fun. And I'm like, well, it was not like this when I went through. So thought this would be a good opportunity. This comes with a caveat for me signing up, though. I am not a night person, so I am holding on here, holding on for dear life. This is normally when I'm entering in a prone position. And my hobby is reading, and you do the I Spy.
Oh, okay. I spy an Eagles Super Bowl picture in the background.
Hi, my name is Mike, and my presence here is somewhat ironic in that I am actually a catechist, as in a Christian religious educator, and I have a group of 14-year-olds who are at their last stage of initiation and about to receive their confirmation. I've always had an appreciation for Judaism, and we're at the stage with the kids where we're talking about God's desire to have an intimate relationship with them. And as I reflect upon Judaism, who you being God's first chosen and current chosen people, that's a historical connectivity that I'm trying to get across to the kids, that this is something that's been around a long, long time, and that we need to establish those relationships. Okay, so my hobby is reading. I spy a couple who has a picture of a guitarist on their wall behind them.
Hi, thanks for choosing us. We'd just like to say that's Jimmy Page. So we do like classic rock. So I'm Colby. And Jess joined late, but she's also going to take the class with us. My reason for joining the class is actually her. So I was not raised Jewish, and she was raised, I would say, deeply Jewish, and she's deeply spiritual. And there was just something about it, and it means a lot to her. And obviously I want to do this with her because it's something I want to learn about if it means so much to her. My hobby is sports. I've gotten into golf, not good by any means, so that will take decades, but I'm trying.
Yeah, so my reason for taking the class, I definitely want to learn more about my religion. I don't think I've ever been in any Hebrew school. The only time I've taken any type of like religion class was in college, which was a while ago. And I also want to like do it in solidarity with Colby, you know, I want to be a good person like that. And then hobbies, I love going out to eat. I guess I'm kind of a foodie. I like to run, but I've kind of been like not doing as great as usual with that. But I do like running normally. And that's about it.
So I spy a fold-up chair and a lamp.
That me? Hi, my name is Pearl, and I was brought up in an Orthodox home, but that home meant that my brother got educated in Hebrew school and I had nothing. And so I only knew the traditions of cooking for the holidays and just doing whatever you did. And when I got married, I married somebody who had a tremendous Jewish background in education. And we moved, both of us are from New York, so we moved to Rochester, New York. And the first thing we did was join a temple. So we've always been very committed to congregations wherever we lived. And I've taken classes in prayer, and I know Hebrew, but I don't know anything about the history of Judaism, really. When the rabbis tell their stories about the Bible, I kind of I can't really follow it too much because I really don't know anything about it. It's probably my own fault. I probably should have sat down and read the Bible at some point in time. But that's what I came here for, because I thought it would be good to get the background of it. My hobbies are lots and lots of things. I've always been a lot of volunteer work in my life. I played tennis and I played golf, and now I'm at a point in my life where I just watch it. My other hobbies are I play Mahjong, I play bridge, and I do a lot of Zooming now, and I've been taking yoga classes and some meditation, and I'm happy to be here to see everybody and learn. And I spy a young lady next door to me in a red sweater.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jody Walker. I'm hard of hearing, so we're working on some way that I could understand what everybody's saying. So if I'm a little bit late in responding to something, I'm trying to figure out what everybody has been saying. I moved here 2 years ago from Boston because my brother was ill, and so I'm in a brand new community at this point in my life, which is pretty scary, and I'm a pretty shy person. And I was going to a knitting class, and that's where I met Faye. And she was so warm, and all the women were so lovely to me that I just became a hooker with them. And and I love to make things for charity. And I did that a lot when I was living in Boston, because there was a hospital near us where children that were underprivileged also ended up when they were taken away from their parents because the parents were on drugs or whatever. So I like helping people. My hobbies are obviously crafting and cooking and reading and learning.
So I will interrupt to say two things, Jody. Number one, welcome and thank you. And also, if I spent a lot of the day today with rev.com, which is a closed captioning service. And for whatever reason, as you can see, it is not working tonight, and I apologize for that. But hopefully by next week, we will have a closed captioning system up. There are other meeting systems that do that, I guess, automatically. Zoom is, it's been a fun journey, but hopefully we will get that working very, very soon. The other thing is just here at Beth Or, there is a very funny, so a wonderful group that knits blankets and all different things for people in need. And they very affectionately and ironically call themselves the Beth Or Hookers, I guess, as they, you know, they're using their hooks to knit things. So that is putting that in context. And Jody, back to you to pass it off to someone else.
I see a young man with a window in the background that has 6 panels in it. Panes of glass, I guess.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm John. Another John for the group. I know it's remarkable, especially there's another Jonathan too, something you never see. I guess my reason for being here, I'm married into a Jewish family. And my only education on Judaism is just going to services at various synagogues throughout my experiences. So I've obviously learned the prayer just by trying, but that's all I have really. So I need to take it to the next level. So I think this course would probably make the most sense for me. And then a hobby, yeah, I guess the same as everyone else, right? Reading, running around, sports, all that good stuff. I spy with my little eye. The lady that referenced history, you're up.
That's me, right? My name's Bonnie, and I've been with David now for over 8 years. We've been married for almost 3. He's Jewish. I've been Unitarian for about the last 30 years. And I've always accompanied him to synagogue when he's gone. And since the pandemic, I've been able to join him in Torah class on Saturdays and for the holidays. And I'd like to add some depth to my experience so that I gain a greater understanding of what Judaism has to offer. And one of my hobbies is playing the flute.
I'm David Goldstein, and I guess I've been going to Torah study and various classes going on 12 years now. And from all that, I can tell you, I don't think you can have enough time studying Judaism. There's a great deal of depth. And for 5,000 years, as Bonnie has pointed out, it's just, you can't seem to ever get enough of it. So I'm looking forward to learning some new things in this class. My hobbies are those things that I can do with my hands, building, crafting things.
So I spy with my little eye a black square that says M. Zuckerman on it. Are you there, M. Zuckerman? Oh, all right. M. Zuckerman is there. Can you unmute?
All right, and I'll write, and I'll say only, no pressure if you don't want to. We can, but we'd love to hear from you. All right.
If not, I can.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I know there might be people who are, okay, no audio. Okay, so yeah, there are people either who might be driving in a car somewhere or something, so they might be listening in. By the way, it's a good time to note, and actually, well, I'll let them introduce themselves, but in talking with someone before this class, they said, oh, can we record this? And thank you for that suggestion. We are recording, so if you ever need to miss a class, or if it's, that time of day is too late at 8 o'clock, you can always catch up on these at another time.
So I will pick somebody else. I spy with my little eye a couple that have a diagonal wall behind them. Maybe a staircase?
That's so sweet. Didn't really have much on the wall behind us. So I'm Sarah Caverly. So my husband and I are taking this class. Neither one of us were raised Jewish, but we've each kind of in different ways kind of found our path to it. And have been interested in it. So we're interested in converting to Judaism. And so this is sort of the first step in that. And very similarly to other people, my hobby is running. It's something I've done for a while, and definitely helps during the pandemic to be able to get out and run.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sean, and I'm really happy to be at this course tonight. As Sarah mentioned, my background also is not with formal Jewish training, although I should say that all of my friends in school at Cornell were Jewish, and they actually scheduled a birthright trip, and they were 2 people short, and I took one of the seats. So I've been through the ringer to a certain degree in the Holy Land, and it took me about 12 years to realize how important that trip was, and a great deal of maturity, I think, with that. And a couple of my hobbies, I'm really into sports, and I'm currently doing some jiu-jitsu training. So that's what I've been into.
We have to pick some.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah, I think this one's an easy choice, right? I think it's Dana and Brian down there.
At least 5 then.
Yes.
I'm Brian. I'm here with my fiance Dana, and I am taking this class because I, like Colby, actually was not raised Jewish, and Dana was, and it was really, really exciting to like get to know her family and see how important it was to them that they were Jewish, and it was a no-brainer to convert before we get married in May of 2022. And I also love running. I actually bought a treadmill during the pandemic, and that's been awesome. So I've been using that a lot.
And I'm Dana, I'm Brian's fiance. I'm doing this class with him and also to learn more about Judaism myself. My education only went up to my bat mitzvah, and it's been quite some time since then. In terms of my hobbies, we're both pediatric residents, so a lot of our time outside the hospital is spent reading about our little patients, but I also love yoga, and I'm a big Penn State football fan.
All right. First of all, everyone, thank you so much for sharing, and it is so exciting to hear everyone's journeys and what has brought you here. And please feel free. I mean, I emailed. I hope most of you. If not, I'm going to put. Actually, it's worth doing now. I will put my email in the chat in case you did not get an email from me today. Please go ahead and email me, jbonder@bethor.org. And hopefully, with everyone's permission, as we continue to be in touch and make connections, I think it's just going to be a wonderful class altogether. I know it was a lot of intros, and God only knows how many of those we've sat on over the past few months during quarantine, but I thought it was a great way to get to know each other, and hopefully you're walking away with maybe saying, oh, I'd love to chat with, Mike about something, or Colby, or or whoever, right? That there might be connections already starting to form inside your brains. So we have, I recognize we've been seated for an hour. Let's take, if you want, 3 minutes just to stretch and hang out, and if you need to use the restroom or grab a drink of water, please go ahead. I'm going to use some more Israeli music as a timer for 3 or so minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll dive into the course a little bit over the next half hour. Okay, so I'll start. Let's see, so many videos to choose from, but I will pick something out, and we'll get back here at like 8:03 ish, and I figure if I say that, we'll really start at 8:05. All right, everyone, welcome back. I see we're trickling back. I know there's one or two folks who aren't set yet, but in case, we've pivoted from Israeli pop to more spiritual music. This is actually a Philly-based group called the Hadar Rising Song Institute. One of the singers actually is someone I know personally. He's a wonderful guy. His name is Rabbi Yosef Goldman. And it's a little bit tragic in this pandemic because they just launched this Singers Institute, where their whole thing was around building community, singing together. As you can imagine, that has been put on hold for a while, but they've produced some amazing spiritual music if you're interested. So, all right, everyone, let's kick things off for this next half hour. And I know it's been a long day, so thank you for hanging with me. And of course, at any point, stop with any questions. Just a few quick things that I want to say is before we get started. Well, again, this class is introductory, not indoctrinary, meaning that we are teaching about things, but a couple of things. Number one, there's no need to assume that any one idea is correct or incorrect. That please feel free to ask questions and challenge and think through things. That's number one. Number two is, right, if as we begin this class, there's no obligation. You are here to learn, and that's it. And whatever may come of that will be your journey and your decision. So just wanted to highlight that, and then ask a really big question: who is Jewish? So we talked before about what is Judaism, right? And we had all of these different answers about a rich tradition, history, the spiritual practice, different ideas about community and all of that. But now then the question becomes, who is a Jew? And this is going to introduce us to a larger idea and something that through which we'll see this whole class, that it depends on who you ask, okay? And I mean that both person to person, rabbi to rabbi, or generation to generation. So we're going to start all the way back in the Torah, in the 5 books of Moses. And if you look at what Jewish tradition says, is that Abraham was the very first Jewish person. His story is found in the book of Genesis, where he discovers the one true God. That is how the story goes. And so Abraham is the very first Jewish person according to Jewish tradition. But there's a bit of a problem. See, today we talk a lot about marriage and about the importance within the Jewish community of marrying a Jewish person, and that's all of this. But Abraham, the very first Jew, had a little bit of an issue. There were no other Jewish people in the entire world, so how would one marry a Jewish person, right? So in the Bible, what's important to know is that Judaism went by the father. If your father was Jewish, and I should say also in biblical times, if your father was Jewish, you were Jewish. Most of the Jewish characters in the Bible, Abraham and Sarah convert together. So there's a sense of that the two of them are on the journey side by side. But Isaac does not marry people of the Jewish tribe. Neither does Jacob. Joseph has a wife who's not Jewish. Moses has a wife who's not Jewish. And yet all of their children are considered part of the people of Israel. So in the Hebrew Bible and through biblical times, Judaism went by and was passed down by your father. Flash forward a couple of centuries, but more, most people say the Torah, speaking from a scholarly perspective, the Torah is codified around 500 BCE. So 500 years later, we start to see something called the Talmud, which is a gigantic corpus of Jewish law. As a matter of fact, the white books there, that is a full, complete set of the Talmud, if you can see that, okay, on my bookshelf. It's a whole lot of books interpreting Jewish law, and something fundamentally shifts there. It goes from Judaism being by the father to being by the mother. There's two main explanations for this. One, in the absence of DNA testing, it's easier to know who the mother is than the father. That's one explanation about why that shifted. And the other is because actually the ancient Jewish tradition in rabbinic times, meaning the times of the Talmud, which was usually 0 to 600, or usually understood as 0 to 600 CE, Rome and the Roman Empire had a major influence on that time period. Roman law was if your mother was a Roman citizen, you are a Roman citizen, and Jewish people actually adopted that framework. Okay, so you have definitions even just in those two generations, two separate generations, completely different generations and different understandings of who is a Jew just by defining it. And this only gets more complicated as time goes on for so many reasons, because there are people who choose to say, I'm not Jewish, right? Don't identify as Jewish, or people who identify as Jewish without Jewish families. And then the issue of conversion comes in. And then the question becomes, what's a valid conversion? You have in the Bible, the most famous convert is Ruth, who is a Moabite woman who converts into the Israelite faith, and does it by just basically saying, I'm paraphrasing, where you go, I will go. Your people is my people. Your God is my God. And that's all it takes. And Ruth is, poof, she's converted. And she's now part of the Jewish people. And there's something really beautiful about Ruth, is that she is actually the great-grandmother of none other than King David of Israel, the greatest, the exemplar of kings in the Jewish tradition. Although we can get into, he did some stuff that wasn't exactly the kindest or most ethical. But again, what I want to highlight is the definition of what it meant to be Jewish in the Bible was totally different than today, where you have many, many steps of what it takes to become Jewish, including, right, here, this class, right, is one of the steps. It's the academic side to a conversion process within the Reform movement. But you have all different opinions across the board, across Orthodox, Conservative, Reform Judaism, Judaism in Israel versus in the United States versus anywhere else. And so there's always going to be a different opinion. And you might, you might have come here for answers, but you might be leaving with more questions than answers, because ultimately what we have is, who's a Jew? It depends on who you ask. So I want to pause there and ask for any questions, anything that is striking to you, anything that I need to clarify. Pearl.
Some years ago, when I lived in Connecticut, the Reform movement changed their policy about only considering people Jewish whose mother was Jewish. And they, in their wisdom, decided that it was going to add to it by saying that if your father was Jewish, you were Jewish. So it went from purely matrilineal to patrilineal. So this is very interesting to me because so many people objected to that interpretation and there was a tremendous hoo-ha about it. But I never knew that originally the father was the one who was determined that you were Jewish.
So thank you for highlighting that. So the landscape today in the Jewish world, and again, I'm doing very broad strokes. We can go into more detail probably next week, but you have the Orthodox world and the conservative Jewish world. Both of those worlds say, I'm saying worlds, but their communities say that because they identify as halachic. So I'm sorry, the one thing I'm really missing that I wish I could do, and I might even bring one in, I'll bring a whiteboard next time, but the word is halacha. Okay, here, I'll just write it on my lesson plan here and put that up for you. So the word is halacha, okay, and that is how it's spelled, H-A-L-A-C-H-A-H. That is, it's Jewish law. Here it is in Hebrew in case you are interested, and it's connected to the word lalechet, which means to walk. And I think there's something really important about that. But those two movements, here it is in Hebrew. Halacha, Jewish law, is in these days, according to those movements, is the Talmud. Okay, the Talmud is an rabbinic tradition, is what defines halacha and how we should walk as Jewish people forward. And so those communities will, I say, if your mother's Jewish, you're Jewish. Okay, the Reform movement says, and after a good amount of time of abiding by those rules, broke away and said, no, let's go back to the origins. Look at our communities, look at our world, look at the realities here. If your father's Jewish, you can be Jewish also. We have precedent for that in the Hebrew Bible, and so that should be the way it is today. It was also a bold rejection of halacha, of saying, look, we don't have to abide by these rules anymore that were written down, or at least each and every one of them, in the Talmud. We can chart our own path, and we can point to examples where that's happened before. Why not us? Why can't we do that also? And so the Reform movement has adopted a policy of either matrilineal or patrilineal. I also want to pause and say, I am speaking in very heteronormative terms, right? There are people today who have two fathers, two mothers, one parent, adoption, in vitro fertilization, right? There's all of these ways that people are brought into families that are not in any way what the ancient rabbis could have imagined. And the stance of, and when I use the terms conservative and progressive, I'm talking religiously, not politically. The religiously progressive communities have said, we have to adapt to the times and figure out how does Jewish tradition apply in this setting. Whereas other traditions are going to take a more conservative approach to say, we've already have this outlined, this is how it is. And so there's a lot going on there, obviously, but all of these are major questions about who is a Jew, who is Jewish, and what is, ultimately, what is this thing we call Judaism? Bonnie or Dave, one of you have your hand up, so go ahead.
So my question is, when a male person dies, it's been of the father, son of. and I'm forgetting when a woman dies, it's not Ben, it's something else of on the
Bot, right? Yeah.
So now I'm forgetting. Are they both Ben of?
Are they what? Are they both what?
Are they both? But you can't say the word Ben translates as son of. If a woman dies,
Correct.
she is
Right. In Hebrew, the word bat in Hebrew means daughter of.
daughter of. So, but it's daughter of a male and son of a male. Is that correct?
Well, so what Dave's referring to is that Hebrew names are generally your name, son of, instead of a last name, son of or daughter of, and the name of parents. Those traditions have also morphed. In the most traditional sense, it's the son of or daughter of, and then the name of the father. In fact, so that is the case in many cases, but also in the Reform movement in general, people adopt, and say, my name, son of my parents' names, and include both of them. There is a tradition when you're praying for someone who's ill, this goes to the superstitions of Judaism. Sometimes you would pray for them and then son or daughter of the mother's name to trick the angel of death, to try and confuse them and pray for someone not by the name that they'd, I guess, would have on their list. So there's a lot of superstition around that in Judaism as well. But going back to this idea of Jewish identity, right, that is another thing that we identify often by who our parents are. Sometimes when people convert, they give honor to their parents and have a Hebrew name, son of or daughter of, and the names of their parents. Sometimes for a Hebrew name, people who convert will take in their name or pick a Hebrew name, son or daughter of Abraham and Sarah, their spiritual parents being the first Jewish couple, Abraham and Sarah. So that's also very much a part of this. So, I'll go one step further to say, and it's important, you'll probably hear me say this a lot, and Mike, actually, I'm looking at you when I say this, so you have to remember there's no Jewish pope. Right? There's never been one centralized Jewish authority who gets to say, right, what goes for everyone else. Now, I always like to say there's plenty of Jewish authorities who'd like to think they're the Pope, okay, and say, I am the one who's going to, set the rule for everyone. But we see this all the time. Jewish communities throughout history have disagreed. We've done it to ourselves because the Talmud, all those books over there, it's one big argument. And rabbis from the ancient times have said, this is the way I interpret it, this is the way I interpret it. And either there's a winner of that argument, or sometimes it's left alone. And it's left as an argument for us to say, okay, we'll see. And so there's a lot riding on that, and it plays out in the Jewish world to this day. Just recently in New York City, there is a place called Yeshivat Maharat, which is an Orthodox, okay, or at least as they call themselves, an Orthodox rabbinical school that ordains women. This sent shockwaves throughout the Orthodox world, in which generally it is only men who are rabbis. And so in this place, right, immediately the rest of the Orthodox world said, well, congratulations, you're not Orthodox anymore. But who are they to say? Ultimately, this rabbi, who was in a line of rabbis, said, I am willing to ordain women. So what happens, right? And so you see this throughout the Jewish world, that there's always debate about who is a Jew and who is not. And it's something that for the purposes of this class, also just to remind yourself that when you convert to Judaism, you convert to all of it, right? There's no such thing as, oh, I'm converting to Reform Judaism, or I'm converting to, no, it's one big family, but we argue an awful lot, and there's a lot to that. There's a lot going on there as you encounter what it means to be part of this very complicated and very, I think, amazing tapestry of people. So one of my professors in rabbinical school, Dr. Elsie Stern, she would always say, if you were to go to an ancient Israelite in the middle of the night and wake them up and say, quick, what is your life about? There are three things that they would say: God, Torah, and Israel. Those are the three things that the ancient Israelite would say, that's what my life is about. Okay, it's important to remember that today, when we ask people, what's your religion? That question was almost like unfathomable in the ancient world. Why? Because religion was so ingrained with your life that it was just part of who you were. How do you get rain? I pray to the God for rain. How do you get, right? I'm not talking Jewishly, right? We had this whole monotheism concept, but in general, in the ancient world, right? I pray to the God for rain. I serve the king. I do all these things that, you know, are part of being a part of a people. That religion was just totally ingrained there, right? Today we have this idea that religion is somehow maybe separate or a part of our identity, and so today we have different ideas about what God is, what Torah is, and what Israel is. But in ancient times, it was so embedded in people that it still remains, I believe, a great framework for what Judaism is. And I would argue, and I'm happy to hear other opinions as well, I would argue that regardless of, as we've just discussed, who is a Jew, maybe it's who your father was, maybe it's who your mother was, maybe it's where you grew up and how you grew up. But I would say, if I'm going to offer my definition, a Jewish person is someone who is in conversation and their life is dedicated to thinking about and living out values of God, Torah, Israel. And now next week, we will break down what that means, because like I said earlier, I say God, that's going to mean a whole lot of different things to a whole lot of different people. And I don't just mean us on the screen, but I mean throughout Jewish history. Okay, even just a quick example, right? When God, right, when God is walking through the Garden of Eden, and God asks, "Where are you?" to Adam and Eve, right? Does God really not know? Is God omniscient? Does God know everything? Or is God really just simply asking the question, Adam, I don't know where you are. Where are you? Right? That's a legitimate question to ask. Is God the God who is as described as the Israelites are crossing the sea, Ish Milchama, a man of war who does battle against Pharaoh? Or is God the Ein Sof, which is a Kabbalistic idea from the Middle Ages, which means God is the one without end? And if there is no end for those scientists in the room, if you can't define an object by its ends, does it exist at all? I'm just throwing out some little tiny questions, you know, over the course of Jewish history, over our 3,000 plus year history, that we have to dig into, because when all I have to say is that one word, God, and it's loaded with a whole lot of stuff. Each of us, right? Each of us has, and this is something I believe, as nuanced as I'd like to think my theology is, there's also the God that is always traveling at the back of the bus, right? The God that is the God of my childhood, that even though I choose, and you will hear me, I try not to gender God, because I don't believe God has a gender. I try not to talk about God with certain limitations, because I believe God is unlimited. But if you were to ask me who God is in a gut reaction, it's clearly the old big man in the back of the bus who's got a long beard and is sitting on a throne with a scepter, right? That's my childhood conception of God. I believe each of us probably has they might not be the same, but a God that we're carrying with us of what we conceive of God. And then the question is, how do we grapple with that? What do we do with that? And how can it propel us forward into a life of meaning? So that's God. Torah, right? Torah is we sing about it in Judaism. For those of you who grew up in or are involved with Jewish communities, you might know this song, Torah, 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 Torah. We just say Torah over and over again because we love it. It's the stories of our people. It's who we are as a tradition. It's an amazing thing. We lift it up in services each week and we show it to the community and we say, Bezot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael. This is the Torah that God gave to Moses before all the people of Israel. And then when we go back to our classroom next week, we'll ask, is it? Is that what the Torah is? Was it all given to God on was it all given to Moses on Mount Sinai? Or is there something called a documentary hypothesis where different folks from around the Judean desert wrote different parts and some amazing editor fit it all together? Okay, that's Torah, right? So now I hope what I'm illustrating, and by the way, I'll do one more for you. Israel is the name given to Jacob after he wrestles with God or an angel, okay? Israel is a modern country. Israel is a people, Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel. Israel means a whole lot, right? So now we've gone from, and I'll close with this, and I'll leave a little bit of time for questions, that we've gone from the ancient Jewish person, or Israelite, I should say, not even Jewish yet, that if you were to go in a time machine and wake them up and say, quick, what's your life about? They would say, God, Torah, Israel. Done. But I hope I've illustrated for just a little bit in a short amount of time that that's going to take a lot of time to unpack. And in my opinion, unpacking that is going to totally propel us forward on our journeys as we discover what this whole Judaism thing is. In the last 2 minutes I have left, I will say a couple of things. One is if you have a question or a thought that you want to share, please put it in the chat. And next time, what I will try and do and promise to do is also make sure that I spend time at least answering your questions. If I don't get to it during class, I am going to send a recap email each week where I will send the questions that were asked and provide a little bit of thinking and some resources around those answers. I like to call it in a real classroom, I have the parking lot where you can take a Post-it and put it up, but here we'll have it in the chat. I think that's it. All right. Oh, and any questions? Anything I can help with? Any comments? Anything at all? So, oh, sorry. Well, I'll let that offer simmer for a moment. Oh, Bonnie, go ahead.
It's an 18-week course, and you were privy to where we're going. Could you give us just a rough outline of where we're headed?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I will send out, and anyone who hasn't received it yet, I will send a syllabus to you to give you an idea. But in general, this class is going to cover Jewish identity, right? What does it mean to be a Jewish person, and what is Jewishness? We'll go into what does it mean to live a Jewish life. So that includes life cycle, right? The calendar. So what does it mean to live a year of Judaism? The holidays, Shabbat, the Sabbath, all of that. What does it mean to be, what was I going to say? What does it mean to inherit these stories, right? The stories of the Hebrew Bible, the stories of the Talmud, the stories of the Kabbalistic mystical tradition, all the way through what does it mean to inherit Jerry Seinfeld, right? That's all part of it, right? And so we're going to have to figure that out. And of course, bagels and lox. So there's all of these different ideas about what does it mean to walk through a Jewish life. And then of course, for some of us here, it might involve what does it mean to become Jewish? And so the life cycle events, baby namings and Brit Milah, the circumcision ceremony, bar and bat mitzvah, weddings, and all the way through the life cycle, including end of life and what that means and what Judaism has to think about that. So that's where we're headed. It's 8:30. I want to be mindful of time. You're welcome to skedaddle if you need to, but I had one more thing that I'd like to share with you, and it is one of my favorite poems. It is by a modern Israeli poet named Yehuda Amichai, which literally translates to Judah, Yehuda, Amichai, my people lives. And he is considered Israel's most incredible poet. He grew up ultra-Orthodox. He became secular and wrestles with that throughout his poetry. And I want to read this to you, and I'll share it on the screen for those of you who are more visual learners. Can everyone see that? The poem is called Tourists. Visits of condolence is all we get from them. They squat at the Holocaust Memorial. They put on grave faces at the Wailing Wall, and they laugh behind the heavy curtains in their hotels. They have their pictures taken together with our famous dead at Rachel's tomb and Herzl's tomb and on top of Ammunition Hill. They weep over our sweet boys and lust over our tough girls and hang up their underwear to dry quickly in cool blue bathrooms. Once I sat on the steps by a gate at David's Tower. I placed my 2 heavy baskets at my side. A group of tourists was standing around their guide, and I became their target. You see that man with the baskets? Just right of his head, there's an arch from the Roman period. Just right of his head. But he's moving. He's moving. I said to myself, redemption will come only if their guide tells them, you see that arch from the Roman period? It's not important. But next to it, left, down and a bit, there sits a man who's bought fruit and vegetables for his family. So Yehuda Amichai is illustrating something that I hope we can take with us, that regardless of who we are no longer tourists, okay? Judaism is not in the ancient walls and the bricks that we can go tour. Judaism is alive. It is a vibrant and amazing tradition that is happening right now. Over 6 million people speak, dream, and argue in Hebrew. It is something that's alive, and we are now people who are along for the journey, but please know you are not a tourist. You are a part of the story now in whatever way you see fit. So with that, I will wish you some Hebrew, Laila Tov, which means have a good night. The word Tov means good. Have a good night. Thank you for joining us. Please feel free to email with any questions or concerns you have. And I hope to see you again next week. And that's it. All right. Have a great night, everyone. And we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.